Ambassador Zixatheta stood in the docking bay of Earth's orbital station, watching through the viewport as their shuttle completed its final approach. The Scarathian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the last century, and Zixatheta had personally overseen the submission of 5 different species. Each first contact followed a pattern that the ambassador knew well. Some species tried to show military strength, others displayed their technology. The weakest ones simply surrendered immediately. Zixatheta's 4 arms adjusted the ceremonial armor that marked their status as Speaker of the Empire. The armor was designed to intimidate, with sharp edges that caught the light and a helmet that made the ambassador appear twice their actual height. Behind them, 6 Scarathian guards stood ready, their plasma weapons visible and charged. This was how the Empire introduced itself to new species. Fear first, then negotiation. The airlock hissed open. Zixatheta prepared for the usual response to their appearance. Humans were new to the galactic stage, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 3 years ago. They would likely try to impress with a military parade or cower in fear. Either response would tell the Empire how to proceed with conquest. Instead, a single human walked through the doorway. She was small, even by human standards, with gray hair tied back in a simple style. She wore what looked like a business suit rather than military uniform or ceremonial robes. Her face broke into what the translator identified as a smile. Ambassador Zixatheta, welcome to Earth Station Prime. I'm Ambassador Chen. I hope your journey wasn't too tiring. 3 weeks in hyperspace can be quite exhausting, can't it? She extended her hand forward. Zixatheta stared at the offered hand, unsure how to respond. The translator indicated this was a greeting gesture, non-threatening. The guards behind the ambassador shifted nervously. Where was the military display? The show of force? Please don't worry about the handshake if it's not comfortable for your species, Chen said, lowering her hand with another smile. We have so many different greeting customs on Earth alone, we certainly don't expect aliens to know ours. Would you prefer a bow? Or perhaps your people have a different greeting? The Scarathian ambassador found their prepared threatening speech dying in their throat. We usually display our weapons as greeting, Zixatheta managed to say. Oh, how interesting. Please feel free to do so if it makes you more comfortable. Though I should mention, weapons are perfectly safe here. The station's defensive systems are quite good at preventing any accidents. Chen's tone was light, conversational, as if discussing the weather. It was then that Zixatheta noticed the human military escort standing by the walls. They hadn't been there moments before, or perhaps they had been so still that even Scarathian combat senses hadn't detected them. Each human soldier was smiling pleasantly while holding weapons that Zixatheta's tactical scanner identified as antimatter rifles. The scanner also helpfully noted that a single shot could vaporize a small spacecraft. The soldiers were not pointing these weapons at anyone. They held them casually, like someone might hold an umbrella on a cloudy day. One soldier noticed Zixatheta looking and gave what the translator called a friendly wave. I apologize for our security, Chen said, though she didn't sound sorry at all. Standard procedure for first contact situations. I'm sure your own people have similar protocols. Now we've prepared some refreshments in the conference room. Do your people consume liquid nutrients? We have water, of course, but also tea, coffee, and something called soda that some species find interesting. Zixatheta's threat assessment training was screaming warnings, but not in any way that made sense. The humans were being completely non-aggressive, yet something about the situation felt deeply wrong. The ambassador looked at their guards, who seemed equally confused. We consume liquids, Zixatheta said slowly. Wonderful. Right this way, then. Oh, I should ask, are there any atmospheric conditions that might be uncomfortable for you? We can adjust the temperature, humidity, even the gravity in the conference room. We want you to be comfortable. As they walked through the station, Zixatheta noticed more oddities. Human crew members smiled and nodded as they passed. Some said things like good morning or welcome to the station. Everyone seemed genuinely pleased to see the terrifying Scarathian delegation. Children, actual human young, pressed against windows to watch them pass, pointing excitedly rather than crying in fear. Your people do not fear us, Zixatheta observed. Fear you? Oh no, why would we? You're our guests. Though I understand if our customs seem strange. We humans have a saying, kill them with kindness. It means to be so nice that it overwhelms people. Chen laughed lightly. It's just an expression, of course. The translator flagged this statement as idiom non-literal. But something about how Chen said it made Zixatheta's scales shift uncomfortably. They passed a window showing Earth below. The planet looked peaceful, blue and green with swirling white clouds. But Zixatheta's scanner picked up something else. Orbital defense platforms, thousands of them. So small they were nearly invisible, but each capable of devastating firepower. They weren't activated or targeting anything. They just existed quietly like sleeping predators. Beautiful view, isn't it? Chen said. Earth looks so peaceful from up here. You'd never know we spent most of our history fighting each other, but that's all behind us now. We learned to be civilized. The conference room was pleasant, with a large window showing the stars and comfortable chairs adjusted for Scarathian physiology. Several humans stood as they entered, all smiling, all welcoming. A table held various containers of liquids and what appeared to be food items. Please sit wherever you're comfortable, Chen said. Can I pour you something? The tea is quite good. It's a blend from my grandmother's garden. She'd be so excited to know aliens were drinking her tea. Zixatheta sat carefully, noting that despite the relaxed atmosphere, the humans had positioned themselves strategically around the room. It wasn't obvious, but someone trained in combat tactics would notice. They were friendly, welcoming, and had perfect fields of fire covering every possible threat angle. Before we begin formal discussions tomorrow, Chen continued, pouring tea into delicate cups that seemed absurdly fragile. We thought you might like to rest. We've prepared quarters for your delegation. Nothing fancy, I'm afraid. We're still learning about xenobiology, but we did our best. There's even a communication system so you can report back to your empire if you need to. She handed Zixatheta a cup. The Scarathian took it carefully, noting how thin the porcelain was. A slight pressure would shatter it. Yet Chen handled them without any concern, as if breaking things wasn't something she ever worried about. Why? Zixatheta asked suddenly. Why are you being so accommodating? Chen tilted her head slightly, an expression the translator labeled as confused innocence. Why wouldn't we be? You've traveled so far to meet us. It's only polite to be good hosts. That's what civilized species do, isn't it? We treat each other with respect and kindness. One of the human military escorts coughed lightly. When Zixatheta looked, the soldier was cleaning their antimatter rifle with a small cloth, humming something the translator identified as a children's nursery rhyme. The juxtaposition was deeply unsettling. Tomorrow we can discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, all the formal things, Chen said. But today just rest. Enjoy the tea. Try the cookies and their chocolate chip, a human favorite. Make yourselves at home. As Zixatheta sipped the surprisingly pleasant tea, surrounded by smiling humans who treated doomsday weapons like casual accessories, a cold realization began to form. The Scarathian Empire had always used fear as its primary tool. But these humans, they had moved beyond fear. They had become something else. Something that could smile genuinely while holding the power to destroy worlds. The worst part was they seemed to actually mean the kindness. It wasn't deception or weakness. It was something far more unsettling. It was what happened when a species became so dangerous that being nice was simply easier than the alternative. The next morning, Zixatheta entered the negotiation room to find Ambassador Chen already there, arranging papers on the conference table. She looked up and smiled that same warm smile that had haunted the Scarathian sleep cycle. Good morning. I hope you rested well. The beds were comfortable? We weren't entirely sure about Scarathian sleeping preferences, but we did our best. She gestured to a side table. There's breakfast if you're hungry. We researched Scarathian dietary requirements. Quite thoroughly, actually. It's amazing what you can learn from analyzing waste recycling systems from your ships. Zixatheta's scales rippled. The humans had been studying them, analyzing their biological waste to understand their nutrition needs. It was invasive intelligence gathering presented as thoughtful hospitality. Thank you, Zixatheta managed, the words feeling strange. In 17 conquered systems, no one had ever thanked the Empire for anything. Other humans filed in, each offering pleasant greetings. There was Director Martinez from Trade Relations, Professor Kim from Cultural Studies, and General Thompson from Defense. The general was a large human with scarred hands who poured himself coffee with movements that suggested barely controlled power. Shall we begin? Chen asked, settling into her chair. I believe you wanted to discuss trade relationships between Earth and the Scarathian Empire. Zixatheta activated their holographic display, showing star charts of the Empire's territory. The Scorathian Empire controls 17 systems. Each provides resources and tribute. Earth will be expected to contribute 30% of its rare mineral production and provide workers for Empire projects. The humans all nodded politely, taking notes on their tablets. Chen tilted her head thoughtfully. That's certainly an interesting opening position. With all due respect, Ambassador, perhaps we could explore arrangements that might be more mutually beneficial. The Empire does not negotiate with new species, Zix Theta said, using the tone that had made dozens of planetary governors surrender. These are the terms. I understand, Chen said mildly. And if you wouldn't mind, could you explain what happens to worlds that don't accept these terms? Just so we have complete information. Zix Theta's forearms spread in what the Empire considered a threatening gesture. Worlds that resist are brought into compliance. Our fleet is vast. Our weapons are powerful. Resistance leads to unfortunate outcomes. General Thompson looked up from his coffee. How unfortunate exactly? If you could provide specifics, that would be helpful. The casual way he asked, as if discussing weather patterns rather than planetary destruction, made Zix Theta pause. Cities are destroyed. Populations are reduced. Leaders are replaced. Ah, Chen said, making another note. That's very clear, thank you. Now perhaps we could consider an alternative arrangement. Earth is quite interested in trade, but 30% seems steep. We were thinking more like 5%, with payment in processed goods rather than raw materials. 5%? Zix Theta stood abruptly, all forearms slamming on the table. The Empire does not accept such insults. None of the humans flinched. Chen actually smiled wider. Please sit down, Ambassador. No offense was intended. We're just negotiating. That's what civilized species do, isn't it? We discuss things calmly until we reach an agreement. Professor Kim leaned forward. If I may add some context, Earth has a long history of resource negotiations. We once had something called the Oil Wars. Quite messy. Millions died over energy resources. But we learned from that. Now we prefer to talk things through. The Empire has a fleet of 10,000 warships, Zix Theta said, sitting down slowly, each capable of orbital bombardment. That's very impressive, General Thompson said genuinely. We have about 300 ships ourselves. Of course, they're equipped with something we call cascade torpedoes. One torpedo can create a chain reaction in a sun, causing it to go nova. But I'm sure your 10,000 ships are much more practical for actual governance. The translator struggled with the human's tone. It registered as conversational and friendly, but the content was a description of star system-ending weapons. You're threatening us? Zix Theta asked. Threatening? Chen looked genuinely surprised. Oh no, Ambassador. We're just having a discussion. General Thompson is simply providing context about our defense capabilities. It's only fair since you shared information about your fleet. Transparency builds trust, don't you think? Director Martinez cleared his throat. Perhaps we could return to the trade discussion. Earth has excellent manufacturing capabilities. We could provide finished products that might interest the Empire. Our electronics are quite advanced and our medical technology might be valuable. The Empire takes what it needs, Zix Theta said, but with less force than before. Of course, that's one approach, Chen said thoughtfully, though taking things by force can be so inefficient. All that military expense, occupation forces dealing with resistance movements. We humans tried that approach for centuries. The British Empire, the Roman Empire, various others. They all eventually collapsed. The maintenance costs were astronomical. Now we prefer trade agreements, Martinez added. Much simpler. Everyone benefits, no one dies, and the paperwork is so much easier than managing occupied territories. Zix Theta's tactical mind was spinning. Every threat the ambassador made was met not with counter-threats, but with polite acknowledgement followed by calm explanations of why Earth's approach might be better. It was like trying to intimidate a cloud. Your antimatter production, Zix Theta said, changing tactics. The Empire requires access to your facilities. Oh, the antimatter plants? Chen brightened. They're fascinating, aren't they? We'd be happy to give your scientists a tour. Of course, the facilities are automated and protected by AI systems we call caretakers. They're programmed to prevent any unauthorized access or changes to production parameters. Very friendly AIs, but absolutely inflexible about safety protocols. What happens if someone tries to force access? Zix Theta asked. Chen's smile never wavered. Oh, the caretakers would be very disappointed. They'd have to activate containment protocols. The last time someone tried to breach an antimatter facility without authorization? Well, we don't talk about the Australia incident. That crater is visible from orbit now, but I'm sure that won't be an issue with your people. The room fell silent for a moment. Outside the window, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, looking serene and harmless. Perhaps, Professor Kim suggested gently, we could start with smaller trade items? Cultural exchanges? We have wonderful entertainment products, movies, music, games. Your people might enjoy them. The Empire is not interested in entertainment, Zixtheta said stiffly. That's a shame, Kim replied. Our horror movies are particularly good. We're excellent at imagining terrible things happening. It's therapeutic for us, actually. We imagine the worst possible scenarios, then make entertainment from them. It helps us process our natural aggressive tendencies in healthy ways. General Thompson nodded, better than the old days when we just acted on those tendencies. Did you know humans are one of the only species that engaged in recreational warfare? We called them sports eventually, but they started as combat training. Zixtheta looked around the table. Each human was still smiling, still polite, still reasonable. And yet every piece of information they shared painted a picture of a species that had been so violent, so dangerous, that they had to develop elaborate social systems just to stop killing each other. We will consider your proposals, Zixtheta said finally. Wonderful. Chen clapped her hands together once. That's all we ask. Consider things. Take your time. We're very patient. We once had a Cold War that lasted decades where two superpowers pointed nuclear weapons at each other, without firing them. We're excellent at waiting. As the meeting continued, Zixtheta found the Empire's usual tactics useless. Every show of force was met with polite interest. Every threat was acknowledged with understanding nods and explanations of why cooperation might work better. It was like trying to conquer a species that had already conquered themselves so thoroughly that external conquest was simply redundant. That evening, Ambassador Chen invited Zixtheta to what she called a casual dinner party at the station's executive dining facility. The Scarathian had attended many diplomatic functions across the Empire, but they were formal affairs filled with displays of power and careful political maneuvering. Chen promised this would be different. Just some interesting humans who wanted to meet you, she had said. Nothing formal. Come as you are. Zixtheta arrived to find a warmly lit room with about 20 humans gathered in small groups, holding drinks and engaged in animated conversation. They all turned and smiled as the ambassador entered, but then returned to their discussions without the fearful staring the Scarathian was accustomed to. Ambassador, so glad you could make it. Chen appeared at Zixtheta's side, pressing a glass into one of their four hands. This is fruit juice, completely safe for your biology. We checked. Let me introduce you to some people. She led Zixtheta to a group of 3 humans who were laughing about something. This is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, she's a military historian. Colonel Jack Rivers, retired, who wrote a book about human conflict resolution. And this is Ms. Yuki Tanaka, who runs our station's education center. They all greeted Zixtheta warmly, as if meeting a potentially hostile alien was perfectly normal. We were just discussing the Battle of Verdun, Dr. Mitchell said, her eyes bright with academic interest. One of World War I's most horrific battles. 300,000 dead, 700,000 wounded, all for a few miles of worthless mud. Why would you fight for worthless mud? Zixtheta asked, genuinely puzzled. Colonel Rivers chuckled darkly. Pride mostly. Neither side could admit they were wrong. So they kept feeding soldiers into what they called the meat grinder. That's what we humans do when we don't have proper diplomatic channels. Did when we didn't have proper channels? Dr. Mitchell corrected. Past tense. We learned. Eventually, Rivers added, taking a sip of his drink. Took us 2 world wars and nearly ending ourselves with nuclear weapons, but we got there. Ms. Tanaka smiled at Zixtheta's confused expression. You have to understand, Ambassador. Humans are naturally violent. Our evolution was intense. We're persistence predators who became smart enough to make tools specifically for killing. Then we turned those tools on each other for thousands of years. But you seem so... Zixtheta searched for the word. Peaceful now. The 3 humans exchanged glances and laughed. Not unkindly, we're not peaceful, Rivers said. We're polite. There's a difference. We learned that if we don't control ourselves, we destroy everything around us. So we developed manners, protocols, rules of engagement. We channel our aggression into other things, like what? Zix Theta asked. Sports, Tanaka said. Business competition. Video games. Scientific research. We competed to put humans on our moon not because it was useful, but because we needed something to fight about that wouldn't end the world. Dr. Mitchell nodded enthusiastically. The space race was brilliant, actually. 2 superpowers with enough nuclear weapons to destroy the planet several times over. And instead of using them, they competed to see who could throw people into space better. Controlled aggression. Chen appeared with a plate of small foods. Try these, Ambassador. They're called canapes, tiny foods that take ridiculous amounts of effort to make. Another way we channel our obsessive tendencies. Zix Theta took one carefully. It was surprisingly good. Tell me, the Scarathian said slowly, about these nuclear weapons. Your species really almost destroyed itself? Oh, multiple times, Rivers said casually. Cuban Missile Crisis, Abel Archer. The Stanislav Petrov incident. We came within minutes of ending our civilization at least a dozen times that we know about. And this doesn't disturb you? Tanaka shrugged. It's our history. We can't change it. We can only learn from it. That's why we're so diplomatic now. We know what happens when diplomacy fails. A new human joined the group, an elderly man with deep laugh lines and alert eyes. Are you telling our guest about our checkered past? He asked with amusement. Ambassador Zix Theta, this is Professor David Warner. He teaches xenopsychology, Chen introduced. Fascinating field, xenopsychology, Warner said, shaking one of Zix Theta's hands. We're trying to understand how alien minds work. Of course, we barely understand our own minds. Do you know humans are the only species we've encountered that has widespread recreational drug use? We deliberately alter our consciousness for fun. That seems dangerous, Zix Theta observed. Everything humans do for fun is dangerous, Rivers laughed. We jump out of functioning aircraft with fabric wings. We climb mountains that kill 1 in 4 climbers. We eat foods that cause us physical pain because we like the sensation. Don't forget war reenactments, Mitchell added. We dress up like historical soldiers and pretend to kill each other on weekends. For fun. Zix Theta's translator was working overtime trying to convey the casual tone these humans use to discuss what sounded like collective insanity. Your species commemorates violence, the ambassador asked. We commemorate everything, Tanaka said. Violence, peace, love, loss. We build monuments to our failures as much as our successes. There's a memorial in Hiroshima where we dropped the first atomic bomb on a city. It's a reminder of victory, of shame, Warner corrected gently, of what we're capable of when we stop being civilized. When we stop being polite. The conversation continued as more humans drifted over to meet the alien ambassador. Each had stories that seemed designed to be terrifying, yet they told them like amusing anecdotes. An engineer talked about Chernobyl and how humans learned to contain radiation. A chef discussed how many foods humans ate were actually poisonous until cooked properly. A pediatrician explained how human children played games that mimicked hunting and warfare. We're not good by nature, Chen said quietly to Zix Theta during a lull in conversation. We're good by choice. Every day, every human wakes up with the capacity for tremendous violence, and we choose to smile instead. We choose to be polite. We choose to be diplomatic. And if someone gives you no choice? Zix Theta asked. Chen's smile didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted slightly. Then we stopped choosing to be polite, but that rarely happens anymore. Most species understand that it's better to be our friends. Because you're peaceful? Zix Theta pressed. Because we're not, Chen replied simply. Across the room, someone had started telling a story about something called the Geneva Conventions. Rules for war, they were saying. Think about that. We got so good at war we had to make rules to limit how horrible we could be to each other. Another human laughed. And the funny thing is, the rules are basically a list of things we already did and agreed never to do again. Like what? Someone asked. Chemical weapons, biological warfare, targeting civilians, torture, came the casual reply. All things we invented, used, and then banned because even we thought they were too much. Zix Theta noticed that their own security detail, standing by the door, had gradually moved closer together. These humans were discussing atrocities like others might discuss recipes, with academic interest and mild humor. Does it not bother you, Zix Theta asked the group, to come from such a violent history? Professor Warner smiled kindly. Every species has violence in their past, Ambassador. The difference is that humans have it in our present too. We just dress it up nicely. We put rules around it. We shake hands instead of checking for weapons, but the impulse is the same. We turned our aggression into a tool, Rivers added, like fire. Dangerous if uncontrolled, useful when properly managed. As the evening continued, Zix Theta began to understand something profound and unsettling. These humans hadn't overcome their violent nature. They had institutionalized it, regulated it, and wrapped it in such elaborate social constructs that it appeared to be civilization. But underneath the smiles and politeness was the same species that had split atoms to win wars. The next day, Ambassador Chen invited Zix Theta on what she called a little tour of Earth's defense systems. General Thompson accompanied them, dressed in a simple uniform that bore no obvious weapons, though Zix Theta noticed how other humans stepped aside when he walked past. "I thought you might be curious about our defensive capabilities," Chen said as they entered a transport shuttle. Transparency builds trust, as I mentioned before. The shuttle departed from the station, heading toward what looked like empty space. As they approached, Zix Theta's sensors began detecting objects. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, small satellites, each no larger than the shuttle itself, arranged in perfect geometric patterns around Earth. "This is our first defensive sphere," Thompson said casually. 22,000 automated defense platforms. Each one carries about 50 kinetic kill vehicles, basically chunks of metal we can accelerate to significant fractions of light speed. 22,000 platforms, Zix Theta repeated slowly, each with 50 weapons. "It's not much," Chen said apologetically. "We're still building up our defenses. We're a young spacefaring species after all." Thompson touched his tablet and a holographic display appeared, showing Earth surrounded by layers of light. "We have 4 defensive spheres total. The kinetic platforms, then the energy weapons grid, then the missile defense systems, and finally the close orbit interdiction field. This must have cost," Zix Theta trailed off, calculating the resources required. "About 30% of our global GDP for the last decade," Chen said cheerfully, "but we all agreed it was worth it. Amazing what humans can accomplish when we're not fighting each other." The shuttle continued past the defense platforms toward a larger structure. It looked almost decorative, with smooth curves and gleaming solar panels. Only Zix Theta's military training let them recognize it as a weapon platform of staggering power. "This is Defense Station Alpha," Thompson said with what seemed like paternal pride. "We call her Alice. She's our primary AI-controlled defensive system. Alice, say hello to Ambassador Zix Theta." A pleasant feminine voice filled the shuttle. "Hello, Ambassador. Welcome to Earth space. I hope you're enjoying your visit." "Alice monitors all traffic within 3 light years of Earth," Chen explained. "She's very friendly but also very protective. She's programmed with what we call aggressive defense protocols." "Which means?" Zix Theta asked. "She interprets any potential threat as an actual threat and responds accordingly," Thompson said. "We found it's better to overreact and apologize later than to underreact and lose cities." "Has she ever overreacted?" "Once," Alice answered directly. "A mining vessel from the Centauri colony failed to transmit proper identification codes. I disabled their engines and weapon systems in 2.3 seconds. The crew was unharmed and we sent them fruit baskets as an apology." Zix Theta stared at the humans. "You gave an AI control of your planetary defenses?" "Oh, not just Alice," Chen said. "We have 12 defense AIs, all with different personalities and approaches. They vote on response strategies. It's very democratic." "We learned that humans sometimes hesitate in critical moments," Thompson added. "AIs don't. They just protect Earth, no hesitation, no mercy if threatened." The shuttle moved past Alice toward another structure, this one clearly industrial. Massive tubes extended from a central hub, each one glowing with contained energy. "Our antimatter production facility," Chen said proudly. "We produce about 2 kilograms per day. It's not much by galactic standards, I'm sure, but it meets our needs." 2 kilograms per day? Zix Theta's scales shifted to a color the humans couldn't see, but which indicated extreme alarm. "That could destroy several cities," "Yes," Thompson agreed. "We use it primarily for fuel, of course, but it does have defensive applications. Our Cascade torpedoes each carry about 10 grams of antimatter as a trigger. You mentioned those before. You claimed they could destroy stars." Thompson smiled slightly. "Would you like to see a demonstration? We have a dead system about 40 light years away that we use for weapons testing." You test star-destroying weapons? Zix Theta asked. How else would we know they work? Chen asked with apparent genuine curiosity. We're very thorough about testing. It's another human trait. We like to verify our capabilities. The tour continued through more defensive installations. Each one was presented with the same casual pride, the same understated descriptions that barely concealed their terrifying power. The humans had turned their solar system into a fortress, but they discussed it like they were showing off a garden. This is all very impressive, Zixatheta said finally. But the Scarathian Empire has conquered 17 systems. We have experience in warfare. Of course, Chen agreed readily. Your empire is very accomplished. We respect that. But humans have been practicing warfare on ourselves for about 10,000 years. We've gotten very creative. Thompson pulled up another display. Would you like to see our invasion response scenarios? We have about 1,200 different plans depending on the type and scale of attack. 1,200? Humans like to plan for everything, Chen explained. It's a bit obsessive, really. But we find it comforting to have responses ready. We even have a plan for if Earth's coffee supply is threatened. That one involves immediate total retaliation. She laughed as if this was a joke. Thompson didn't laugh. Zixatheta wasn't sure if it was a joke or not. They passed a series of ships under construction. They looked almost delicate, with sleek lines and minimal visible weapons. Our new Explorer-class vessels, Chen said. They're designed for peaceful contact and scientific research. Zixtheta's sensors scanned one of the ships. The power signature was enormous, barely contained. These are warships. No, Chen protested mildly. They're explorer vessels. They just happen to have defensive capabilities. The shield generators could withstand a direct hit from a nuclear weapon. The engines can accelerate to 80% of light speed in an emergency. And yes, they carry a few cascade torpedoes, but that's just for asteroid clearing. Asteroid clearing, Zixtheta repeated flatly. Space is dangerous, Thompson said with a straight face. Lots of rocks floating around. Sometimes you need to clear a path. The shuttle began returning to the station. Earth grew larger in the viewport, still looking peaceful and blue. But Zixatheta now knew better. The planet was surrounded by enough firepower to sterilize a solar system, controlled by AIs programmed for aggressive defense, and populated by beings who treated doomsday weapons as safety equipment. Why show me all this? Zixatheta asked suddenly. Why reveal your defenses? Chen and Thompson exchanged glances. Chen answered, because we want to be friends, Ambassador. And friends are honest with each other. We're showing you that we can defend ourselves not to threaten you, but so you understand that we choose peace from a position of strength, not weakness. We could have hidden our capabilities, Thompson added, pretended to be weaker than we are. But that would be dishonest, and humans value honesty in their friendships. Besides, Chen continued with that ever-present smile, we're hoping the Scarathian Empire will become trading partners. It's so much more profitable than conquest. Have you seen our entertainment products? Movies, music, video games? Very popular in other systems. Much easier to export than armies. As they docked at the station, Zixatheta had one more question. What happens if someone attacks Earth despite all these defenses? Chen's smile finally faded slightly. Then we stop being polite, Ambassador. But that so rarely happens. Most species are very reasonable. We have faith that the Scarathian Empire is reasonable too. The implied threat was delivered with such gentle confidence that Zixtheta felt their scales shift again. These humans had turned implied violence into an art form, wielding politeness itself as a weapon more effective than any antimatter bomb. Zixatheta sat in their quarters staring at the communication screen. In 12 hours, they would need to transmit their report to the Scarathian Empire. The High Command was expecting recommendations for conquest strategies, resource extraction plans, and subjugation timelines. Instead, Zixatheta was preparing to recommend something the Empire had never done before, a peaceful treaty. The door chimed. Ambassador Chen entered carrying a tray with 2 cups. I thought you might enjoy some tea while you work on your report, she said, setting a cup near Zixatheta. Chamomile. It's supposed to be calming. You know I'm writing a report about your species, Zixatheta said. It wasn't a question, of course. Every new species writes reports about Earth. The Altarians wrote a particularly interesting one. They described us as aggressively friendly. We took it as a compliment. Zixatheta turned from the screen. Do you know what I'm going to recommend? Chen sipped her tea thoughtfully. I imagine you'll tell your empire the truth. That Earth is defended by beings who turned warfare into science, violence into art, and destruction into industry. That we smile not because we're harmless, but because we're choosing not to harm. The Empire doesn't accept peaceful treaties. We conquer or we destroy. How unfortunate, Chen said mildly. Though I suppose every empire has its traditions. We used to have similar policies. The Romans, the Mongols, the British, they all believed in conquest or destruction too. What happened to them? Oh, they're all gone now. Empires always fall, Ambassador. Every single one in human history eventually collapsed. But you know what survived? Trade routes, diplomatic marriages, cultural exchanges. The things built on mutual benefit lasted longer than any empire. Sixitheta's four arms moved restlessly. The High Command will see peaceful negotiations as weakness. Will they? Chen asked. Or will they see it as wisdom? Your empire has conquered 17 systems through force. How much does it cost to maintain that control? How many ships, how many soldiers, how many resources spent on suppression rather than growth? She stood and walked to the window, looking out at Earth. We humans spent thousands of years learning this lesson. Conquest is expensive. Occupation is exhausting. But trade? Partnership? Those pay for themselves. You're asking the Scarathian Empire to change its fundamental nature. Chen turned back with a gentle smile. No, Ambassador. I'm offering the Empire a chance to evolve, just as humans did. We didn't stop being violent. We just found better uses for our aggression. Your Empire could do the same. And if we refuse? If we come with our fleet of 10,000 ships, then Alice and her 11 AI siblings will activate defensive protocols. Our Cascade torpedoes will launch. Our kinetic platforms will fire, and we'll stop being polite. Chen's voice remained soft, conversational. But afterward, when the debris settles, whoever survives will probably realize that trade would have been simpler. She moved toward the door, then paused. You know, Ambassador, the scariest thing about humans isn't our weapons or our history of violence. It's that we genuinely prefer being friendly. We want to share our music and movies and foods. We want to learn about other cultures. We want to be good neighbors, but we're absolutely prepared to be terrible enemies if forced. After she left, Sixtheta returned to the report. The cursor blinked on the screen, waiting for words that would determine the fate of two civilizations. The ambassador began typing. Urgent report to the Scarathian High Command. Subject, Human First Contact Assessment. Under no circumstances should the Empire attempt military action against Earth. The humans have evolved beyond the need for threatening displays. They do not posture or boast because they have nothing to prove. Their politeness is not weakness, but rather the opposite. It is the behavior of apex predators who have no natural enemies and must actively choose restraint. Their defensive capabilities exceed initial estimates by several orders of magnitude. They have automated systems controlled by artificial intelligences programmed for, in their words, aggressive defense. They possess weapons that can destabilize stars. They produce antimatter in quantities sufficient for systemic destruction. Most alarmingly, they treat these capabilities as normal, even mundane. But their true strength lies not in their weapons, but in their nature. Humans are a species that weaponized nuclear fission within years of discovering it. They turned spaceflight, computing, and even communication into tools of war before finding peaceful applications. They approach every situation with the question, how could this be used to destroy? And then choose not to. They have institutionalized violence to such a degree that peace becomes a choice rather than a default. They smile while holding antimatter. They serve tea while discussing planetary bombardment. They apologize for modest accommodations while displaying system-killing weapons. Recommendation: immediate peaceful treaty. Offer trade agreements on human terms. Send diplomatic gifts. Be extremely polite in all interactions. The humans have a saying, kill them with kindness. I believe this is not a metaphor but a warning. They have weaponized kindness itself, turned diplomacy into a first strike weapon, made politeness into a containment protocol for their own nature. If we attempt conquest, we will not be fighting their weapons. We will be fighting their restraint. And when that restraint ends, when they stop choosing to be polite, the Empire will discover why humans needed to develop such elaborate social controls in the first place. They are not pretending to be peaceful. They are pretending to be only as dangerous as their politeness allows. Send fruit baskets. Send trade delegates. Send anything except warships. This is not a recommendation made from fear but from a clear tactical assessment. The humans have transcended the conquest paradigm. They have made peace more profitable than war and kindness more effective than threats. The Empire must adapt or become another footnote in what the humans call history, a subject they study extensively, filled with empires that thought they could conquer those who had already conquered themselves. Final note: the human ambassador knew I would send this report. She knew what I would write. She served me tea while I decided the fate of our empire. This level of confidence should terrify the High Command more than any weapon. They don't hope for peace. They expect it, because the alternative is too terrible for even them to remain polite about. End report. Zixitheta sent the transmission and sat back. Within hours, the Empire would make its decision. The ambassador suspected it would be the first peaceful treaty in Scarathian history. A soft chime indicated a message at the door. Zixitheta opened it to find a basket of fruit with a note. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. Looking forward to a long and profitable friendship. The humans. P.S. The cookies are chocolate chip. We think you'll love them. Zixitheta tried a cookie. It was delicious. Somehow that made everything worse. Or perhaps the ambassador thought better. Perhaps this is what evolution looked like. Not growing beyond violence, but growing comfortable with it. Mastering it so completely that cookies and cascade torpedoes could exist in the same species, without contradiction. The Scarathian Empire would adapt. It would have to. The humans expected it.